Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Rotoballer Radio Waiver Wire Series. I'm your host, Anthony Aniano. Happy to be with you here as we take a look at the Week 16 waiver wire for your fantasy football season, for the playoffs of your fantasy football season, for Week 2 of those playoffs, obviously, the semifinal round of the playoffs. And I'm coming at you here on a Tuesday, a little bit later than normal because of the change in schedules for Week 15. Full disclosure, the Tuesday night games have not occurred at the time of this recording. That's the Washington football team, I should say, and the Eagles and the Rams Seattle game. But we do have a full complement here, full discussion about the Monday night and Sunday and as of Thursday night games. Okay, hopefully your leagues have adjusted the waiver wires to run some point on Wednesday. All right, guys, and Week 16, congratulations if you've made it. You've made the semifinals, thus you're still listening to the show. Don't forget, head over to rotoballer.com and check out everything we have there. The main page, the premium package, the chats, you name it. Rotoballer.com has it for you. Baseball, football, basketball, MMA, esports, NASCAR, PGA, sports betting, you name it. Rotoballer.com, the place to be, whether it's DFS or season-long formats. Sign up for any premium pass. Use the promotional code ACES. Save an additional 10% on that sign up. Like and subscribe right here to the Rotoballer YouTube channel. Tons of football content, baseball, basketball will be rolling through as well. So make sure you check out all the great stuff here on Rotoballer's YouTube channel or wherever you listen to the Rotoballer Radio podcast. All right. Injuries, COVID. This is a situation right now in the NFL in flux. Be ready to move on a dime to another player as you roll through the playoffs. Right now we have at the quarterback position. We have Lamar Jackson didn't play Week 15. We have Teddy Bridgewater leaving the game injured in Week 15. Jared Goff, who I liked, who was on my waiver list. And I know some of you blasted me 2 weeks ago. Jared Goff, Jared Goff, Jared Goff. And you tore me up. Well, Jared Goff has 9 touchdowns in his last 4 games. Jared Goff has, over those last 4 games, 2 games with 25 or more fantasy points. And he has wide receivers he's made relevant. Okay, but nonetheless, Jared Goff has COVID, so we're not going to add him high to the list. All right, he's on my injured list, COVID list right now. Running backs, we have Leonard Fournette with a hamstring, Joe Mixon with an ankle. Okay, wide receivers, Julio Jones with a hamstring. Hopefully A.J. Brown comes back. Sterling Shepard done for the year with an Achilles. Godwin with the knee, done for the year. Mike Evans with a hamstring. Tyreek Hill and Cole Beasley just right before I recorded this. COVID protocols, they could be out. Tight end, Freiermuth of Pittsburgh with a head injury. Kelsey with a COVID. And his primary backup, Blake Bell, also COVID. And I'm sure I've missed people. That's how that list is growing each and every day. Washington football team is on their 3rd string quarterback. So it's just a mess. So be ready to pivot at any moment. Now, I will start at the quarterback position. And I've talked about Carson Wentz's and Jimmy Garoppolo's. And listen, Jimmy Garoppolo provides a nice, safe floor every week. San Francisco, though, can run the ball down your throat. So that kind of, I think, limits Garoppolo. He's never going to be a 30-point guy. If you need upside in the semifinals, if you've dealt with injury, you're waiting back Lamar Jackson, guys, the obvious ad at the quarterback position is Tyler Huntley of the Baltimore Ravens. He's a must-add in 2 QB leagues. He's kind of a must-add all around. Even maybe if you don't need him. Even if you want to add him as a prevention play. Even if you want to add him just in case to prevent, right? COVID situation is ongoing in Kansas City. Can you imagine losing Pat Mahomes at this point in your season? That makes Tyler Huntley a prime add. You want to add players who could provide fantasy points at this point. And we know Huntley can do that if he starts. Lamar Jackson could return from the ankle injury as well. But let's protect ourselves until we know more. Huntley, 2 touchdowns through the air, 2 touchdowns on the ground. Okay, plays Cincinnati next week. He came off at 39.9 fantasy points. He's got 57 fantasy points in his last 2 days. All right, so get Huntley on your roster. Let's let Baltimore figure out the situation with Lamar Jackson. And then you at least know, at the very least, I have Huntley. Nobody else does. If Lamar Jackson plays Sunday, you can always drop Huntley and add somebody else. So he is my number 1 and primary quarterback add of the week. At the running back position, okay, a couple of things to be mindful of. My number 1 add at the running back position is Ronald Jones. We know Leonard Fournette's going to miss at least week 16 against Carolina and possibly week 17. And that's where Ronald Jones gets real appealing, guys. 34% rostered at the time of this. He went 8 for 63 this past week in the shutout loss by Tampa Bay to New Orleans. Okay, but week 16 at Carolina, week 17 it's juicy against the New York Jets. So even if you don't use him week 16, you're going to be tempted to use him week 17. So Ronald Jones filling in for Leonard Fournette. Number 2 is Craig Reynolds of the Detroit Lions. 195 rushing yards combined over the last 2 games. 12.7 fantasy points. The issue with Reynolds is he hasn't really gotten in the end zone enough. But again, a great matchup for Reynolds against the Atlanta Falcons. Again, be mindful, if they don't have Goff, the entire Detroit offense does take a hit. Up number 3 is Samaje Perine. I've mentioned him before on this show to protect against Mixon. Now Joe Mixon has an ankle, so Perine, who's been effective this year, 4 carries for 30 yards on Sunday with 2 receptions for 13. He's only 13% rostered, same as Craig Reynolds of Detroit. Okay, he goes against the Baltimore Ravens. He sits at number 3. At number 4, Duke Johnson of the Miami Dolphins, who may very well have played himself into at least a rotation with Myles Gaskin. Duke Johnson, 2% rostered, goes for 107 on the ground with 2 touchdowns, and his specialty pass catching, only 1 catch for 20 yards. The reason Duke Johnson is so low is that week 16 matchup is brutal against the Saints defense that just shut out the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And finally, Austin Eckler dealing with an ankle and then popped up on the COVID list, but right before I recorded this, came off it, or they said he wasn't on it. Austin Eckler's in the clear COVID-wise, but be mindful of Justin Jackson, 6% rostered. He did get 13 carries, splitting them with Eckler last Thursday, and a great matchup for the Chargers backfield against the Houston Texans. So at the running back position, Ronald Jones, Craig Reynolds, Samaje Perine, Duke Johnson, Jackson, and Josh Kelly. Okay? At the wide receiver position, give me Gabriel Davis, especially if Beasley's out. Sanders hasn't been great. He's been in and out of the lineup. Gabriel Davis has been a touchdown machine and emerging as the number 2 option next to Stephon Diggs. Gabriel Davis only 19% rostered. 7 targets, 5 receptions, 85 yards, 2 touchdowns this past week. 4 touchdowns in his last 3 games with 19 targets over that span. He's my number 1 wide receiver ad. My number 2 ad, and again, a little contingent on the status of Jared Goff, but we got to be mindful of Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mentioned him last week. I'll mention him again. He goes 8 for 90 and a touchdown in the Lions' upset win against Arizona, and a great matchup against that Falcons defense. We'll pick on them throughout this show. 11 targets for Ray St. Brown, 29% rostered. In his last 3 games, he has 12, 12, and 11 targets with 15 or more fantasy points in all 3 and a total of 26 receptions. Now, the Tampa Bay situation. Godwin, we know, done for the year. Evans dealing with a hamstring. Antonio Brown will be the wide receiver 1. Tampa Bay brought him back between the injury and the suspension. They need him, so they brought him back to the roster. And he's already rostered. He's about 68% rostered. Obviously, if available in your league, you add him, and he probably leapfrogs everybody else on this list. After that, we have Brashad Perryman, 1% roster, but also COVID issues there. He would be my number 2 ad if he comes off of COVID issues. Number 3 ad, Tyler Johnson, another 1% rostership there for Tyler Johnson. 27 receptions, 288 yards on the season for Tyler Johnson as he moves into a prime role for the Tampa Bay Bucks going forward. Zay Jones of the Las Vegas Raiders is on the radar. If you saw him play Monday night, he was a target favorite of Derek Carr as Hunter Renfrow was just being double covered the entire game. Zay Jones, 28 targets in his last 4 games. He's only 0%. He's a freebie on Yahoo. 6 for 67 on 9 targets going against Denver. And finally, and again, this was a late-minute addition here, with Tyreek Hill, COVID, Josh Gordon, COVID for Kansas City. That doesn't leave much. In order, Mecole Hardman, number 1 ad for me for Kansas City at the wide receiver position. Number 2, Byron Pringle. Number 3, Demarcus Robinson. If Josh Gordon comes off the COVID list, though, he could jump up to number 2 behind Mecole Hardman. So see how that Kansas City situation shakes out. If Hardman's available, though, he's the ad, followed by Byron Pringle. At the tight end position, Travis Kelce, Pat Frymuth, both out, it looks like. Well, Kelce dealing with COVID, okay? But his backup, Bell, also dealing with COVID. That leaves number 3, Noah Gray. Who knows what you get from him? Let's be honest about that. That's the third-string tight end on the Chiefs. That's a desperation of desperation play, but I just wanted to mention the name. If you need tight end help this week, we have Foster Moreau, 13% rostered. He should be on every team where Darren Waller went down. Against for the Raiders on Sunday against Cleveland, on Monday I should say, 7 for 65 on 9 targets, 13.5 fantasy points, 13% rostered. Cole Kmet of the Bears, 25% rostered, 6 receptions on 9 targets, 71 yards, goes against Seattle next week, 32 targets in his last 4. Take a look at Gerald Everett of Seattle, who's playing later Monday night. And finally, James O'Shaughnessy of the Jacksonville Jaguars, 4 receptions, 60 yards, 10 fantasy points, 21 targets over his last 4 games, and a smash matchup, a winnable game for the Jacksonville Jaguars against the New York Jets. Okay, if I rank the tight ends, honestly, it's Moreau, it's Cole Kmet, and then it's O'Shaughnessy. If I rank the wide receivers, if Antonio Brown's somehow available, he's number 1. We'll assume he's not. Give me Gabriel Davis 1, Amon-Ra St. Brown 2, and then we sort through the Chiefs and the Tampa Bay situation with Mecole Hardman overall ranking there at number 3. All right, everybody, give me a follow on Twitter at Aniano Fantasy. Like and subscribe right here to the Rotoballer YouTube channel or wherever you listen to the Rotoballer Radio podcasts. And be smart, be safe. Good luck in Week 16, everybody. Win this, and then you bring home a fantasy championship, let's hope. All right, we'll see you next time. Have a good one, folks.